The Michener's move is in the best interest of patients. Many families will never believe it. Some whose relatives have died since their transfer are very vocal about who and what might be to blame. Jill Croteau looks at that side of the story.
Just a plastic sack.
It's all he has left of his nephew, a box of ashes he plans to lay to rest with his mother.
And I'm going to spread it on the river where we all used to go.
Barry died last month, just weeks after being transferred out of the only home he's ever known.
And I watched how they handled Barry. You have to understand that these people got to know him better than I ever would.
And he's left to wonder if the move from Michener had an irreversible impact.
I said, well, as far as I'm concerned, I don't want Barry moved anywhere. And if he were to be moved anywhere, I would want the staff that took care of him to be the same people taking care of him. That I did specify specifically.
I did not want him moved.
Cliff Culbert's brother Orville lived at Michener for decades, but he too died shortly after a move.
And that was his family. It was heartbreaking for him, and I think he died of a broken heart. He fought his way through so many obstacles that he still needed his heart in place to be able to fight this one, and it wasn't there. I think he gave up.
Being his surviving guardian, Cliff made the decisions for his brother, but insists he was pressured to move him out.
If you don't make the right choices, maybe you can come to my brother's funeral with me. And I wish I hadn't said it because it's come to pass.
I'm convinced that had all of these people remained at Michener, they would still be alive.
The other families who have been fighting relentlessly to halt the closure are scared.
This is about people's lives. This is about disabled people who are dying, and the government still persists. They are still transitioning as we speak, despite that they have a 12% collateral damage. 5 out of 41 people that have been moved out have died. So at what point do you pause? At what point do you stop and say, we need to look at this, something's not right, something's not working?
PC leadership candidates Thomas Lukaszuk and Rick McIver have both said they would keep the Michener Centre open if elected. Jim Prentice, on the other hand, announced today he'll be meeting with residents soon and will develop a position after that. Jim Prentice's comments about how long politicians should serve Albertans are sparking debate.
The PC leadership contender says the bond of trust between Albertans and the government has been broken, and term limits are one way to address the dismay that voters are feeling. Shalima Maharaj joins us live from the Citadel Theatre now, where all 3 PC candidates are going head-to-head in a debate right now put on by the PC Youth of Alberta. Now,
Shalima, Prentice's comments are already drumming up plenty of response today.
Yeah, that's right. They certainly are. Prentice says there's no place in politics for anyone who would abuse the public's trust, and there's no beating around the bush about what needs to happen next. He says the party needs to chart its own course, and that starts with a few acts that he would implement if elected. The first one is actually an accountability act that would help define the responsibility of the governing party to Albertans. And the second one, which is garnering the most response, would be imposing term limits on MLAs and the Premier. Now, here's what he's proposing: a limit of 3 terms for an MLA and a limit of 2 terms for the Premier.
The concept of term limits is not a new concept, and it's applied in many places in the United States. I think it's reasonable that someone would serve as Premier for no more than 8 years, and I think it's reasonable that someone would serve as an MLA for no more than 12 years. I mean, this cannot be imposed retroactively. I understand that.
Alberta Party leader Greg Clark issued his own statement on this, and he said that this proposal by Prentice is simply a cynical attempt to extend a failing dynasty, end quote. Now, it also raises a question of constitutionality and whether or not this in fact infringes on Section 3 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which essentially guarantees all Canadian citizens the democratic right to vote and to be eligible for membership in the provincial legislative assembly. So there are going to be so many questions raised tonight, and we'll bring you those answers on News Hour Final at 11. Shay, Caroline.
Okay, thank you.